I'm going to talk today a little bit about stitch length and stitch width. So if you imagine that the needle here is a person, stitch length alters how big a stride that person takes. And the bigger the number, the bigger the stitch, or the bigger the stride. So here you can see as you increase the number, the stitches get bigger. When I started, they were very close together, which isn't good for paper because it tears. And then as I got to the end, to the fore, they're bigger and further apart. So you've got the choice on one dial as to how long you make those stitches. And this is stitch width, and this is if you imagine the little person taking steps from side to side. And the bigger the number here, I started on 4, the wider his steps will be, and then I reduced it down to 1, which is hardly at all. So that's stitch length and stitch width, and they're usually on 2 different dials. On my machine, this dial does the stitch length and this dial does the stitch width. It's C is the zigzag, and I can alter the width of the zigzag by turning it round here. Most machines are similar. The other thing we can alter is how close together those zigzags are. So if I take the widest zigzag stitch but start altering the length those stitches are together, we'll have them very close together here, as if you were doing a buttonhole, and then very far apart if I turn this round here. So you're combining the forward step with the width step. So if I leave this set on that width, on the widest width, and I start this from 1, and I go from 1, and I can do that, and they're very close together, and then I can alter it to 2, and then I can alter it to 3, just move this thread out the way, and I can alter it to 4. So we can have a look at that. That's got stitch length 1, where the wide zigzags are close together, stitch length 2, they're further apart, stitch length 3, and stitch length 4. So you can combine those 2 dials and you'll get different widths with different lengths. So that works out how close they are together. If you want a really tight zigzag stitch, but you want it wide, then you would have it on 4 on the width dial, but 1 on the length dial. So you're getting the maximum width and the minimum step. So if you think of the needle of your sewing machine as a little person, then stitch length is how long the steps are that that person is taking. So if you have your stitch length button, which is often indicated by a straight stitch here, if you have it on 1, they're small steps, 2 a bit bigger, 3 bigger still, and 4 are strides. And you can see that on this sample here. 1, the stitches are very close together, 2 a bit wider, 3 wider still, 4 quite wide. So that's what that controls, the stitch length. This other dial here is controlling stitch width. So if you imagine the needle is stepping from side to side for a zigzag, then that second dial is dictating how wide those steps are. So 1 is taking a small step side to side, 2 a bit wider, 3 wider still, and 4 very wide. So that is controlled on my machine by this dial, and that's where you can see the symbol for the zigzag there. And if I set it on C for zigzag, C, and then that definitely will do a zigzag stitch. And depending where I put it here with this little diagram, it's wide, going narrower, narrower, narrower. So I can choose how wide I want my zigzag stitch to be. The only other thing that you might want to do is you might want to decide how close together to do those zigzags. So for different reasons, we might want them closer together or spaced out. Closer together on paper, it tends to rip. But if you were sewing on fabric, you would want to neaten something. You would want it close together. So if I wanted to do my zigzag, so I'm going to set my zigzag at the widest here on C, and then I'm going to alter this style, and 1 would have them close together, 2 a bit further apart, 3 further still, 4 very wide apart. So you're combining how wide the stitches are with how big the steps are. And you can alter those two things to get what you want. If you want to do a buttonhole, you'd take it below 1 so that it was really close together, and that would be a satin stitch. And that neatens the fabric so that you can then cut the buttonhole open without it all fraying. So those 2 dials on my machine are here, stitch length for the straight stitch and then stitch width for how wide the zigzag is, and then the 2 together so that I know how wide I'm doing it and how close those zigzags are together if I want to do that. When I'm doing my applique on quilting, I have it quite close together here and about midway on this one, because I do my applique with a satin zigzag stitch. So I hope that was easy to understand.